All right, we'll now call the committee of the whole to order. And the one thing on the agenda is residential development.
Okay. This is primarily just an informational meeting. I did prepare a one-page handout. You should all have a copy of that. Also, Jim's got a copy of it. And I do have maps here we can reference if anybody's in question what we're doing. In the packet tonight for the village board meeting, so what I did is I recapped the July builder's permit. As you can see, there's 15 R1 year-to-date home building projects. There are potentially 5, if not more, spec homes for sale in the village right now. Majority of them are in Jim's subdivision. Jim Clegg is the owner of the subdivision on Wildwind, off by the fire department, off of 9th Street. So potentially we could see 10 more new home constructions if the spec homes sell in that subdivision. I've been in constant conversation with many of the developers out there, and if they sell, they're gonna dig another basement. So essentially, phase 1 in Jim's subdivision is already sold. That is 30 lots that are, how many are on there right now, Jim?
30 are sold out.
How many houses are currently standing?
Dozens.
14, correct?
That's wrong. He's dug 2 more holes, Vance, because he sold all his houses. He
Okay.
did 2 more.
Okay.
Boardwalk built 4, I think he's on his 2nd sale right now.
So we're looking at a banner year. Potentially you could see 25 new homes constructed this year. 15 better than last year, and as you can see by the builder's permit, if you look in your packet, it's been about 10 or more for the last 5 years, and then before that it was fairly slim pickings. But moving on, there are currently in R2 there's two lots remaining, and there's 2 permits out currently. One is for our August 28th property planning and zoning commission with a variance request. And then there's one lady that came in today who pulled a permit that we don't see, and that's for another build in the West Wind subdivision. So all said, Carl and I have done a pretty good analysis. We're looking at about approximately 13 buildable lots left in the village of Hortonville. 13 R1 lots and 1 lot that's designated R2. If we keep up near or even half of what we're doing, we cannot accommodate potential growth moving forward in the village. So I put on paper there potential developments being West Wind. Now Richard Kinnison is the developer in West Wind. He has the potential for 15 more R1 lots. We have gone through the process to work with Davil Engineering on cost estimates for that area. Unfortunately, he runs into some serious issues with ledge rock. The cost estimates to that have more than 5 times since he took that subdivision out. In the 90s, Carl? Late 90s? Mm-hmm. So at this point, he is picking and choosing and building where he can because the roads aren't built. Legitimately, for him to put the roads in that the village has plotted would cost him approximately almost $60,000 per lot just for the infrastructure upgrades. It's just not advantageous for him to do it. So he's at a crossroads, wants to develop it, but it may come back to the village to do possibly something like was done on Gulfside Court. Restricted size lots, a unit development. We may be put into a situation where we might have to run cul-de-sacs rather than thoroughfares, something to accommodate the build out, potentially slab on grade homes, and look for different options, because there are areas there where it's only 2 feet of cover before you get into ledge rock. And anybody knows when you guys start dynamiting ledge rock, your prices are going to go astronomical. We also have Wildwind. Jim has gotten the price tag for phase 2 infrastructure costs for 38 buildable lots, actually 39 lots total, 38 for saleable lots. Came in excess of 1.61 million, which equates to about a $42,000 per lot stipend. What I had suggested, I met with Jim and John Davil earlier this week, actually Tuesday this week in Menasha. I suggested, hey, we might, some of the economies of scale would be to add additional lots to phase 2 that kind of made sense with minimal infrastructure costs. By doing that, we extended it out to 66 lots, which brought the price tag down to $37,000, which is a little more economical. But Jim's here tonight because he's also approached the village to see what we can do to help him in the process. Nature's Haven, which is also the Parker family, they are currently in the bidding process to see what it costs for infrastructure on their development. That one has also been sitting very idle. But he again has also approached the village for assistance to try to get something developed, some development going. And then most recently, I've been working with the Horizon Development Corporation. They're the company that has been qualifying the Nash Hills property in TID 3 and Mike Gonering's 2 properties in TID 4, which are adjacent to the toy factory. They are both qualified and they would be viable building sites for a senior 55 development. And the reason we've gone that pathway is because after the Commonwealths were developed, a lot of that age group and that category of people have come to the village looking for residential housing solutions because they thought that's what was going to be catered to them, and a lot of them didn't qualify because of the restrictions on income. So we found out that that category exists, that a lot of people are looking for that type of housing, that may want to get out of their current home in the village and get into something that could be either a rental or a side-by-side duplex, something with an HOA, where they know their lawn and snow removal is going to be taken care of. So that was something that I kind of pushed towards the Horizon group, and the reason I did that is because there's some local to where I live, and I also knew some in Green Bay where in-laws have lived in the past. So they put a nice project together. They're a very strong management and development company. However, that would also require strong village participation, and I would say probably be 1.5 times what the costs were with the Commonwealth. It's just, nothing's getting any cheaper nowadays. Obviously, I've done my homework. Factors to consider on the bottom: TID in versus TID out, financial contributions. I think everybody knows what tax levy is and how it calculates. So when we're building in a TID, we don't see the increment immediately. TID 3, TID 4 are very juvenile TIDs, so essentially we won't be able to touch that money with our budgeting for essentially the next 17 years. So everything stays in that TID, it's locked. We can't use it for what we need it for. We need that development, we need it to come from a sector that's not TID driven. Not saying we don't want to work in the TIDs, because that's a good way to expense it, but it's just we don't see the dollar figure now. And talking with Carl, that's it's advantageous if we can build outside of the TID right now. It's just we are at that point where we need to figure out what we're going to do. The pay-go incentives go hand in hand with the TID, very similar to how the Commonwealth was structured. So again, 90% return on their investment. It did well to get the area developed, but as I said, you're talking now the next 18 years, 90% of the tax revenue will be handed back to the Commonwealth, leaving 10% remaining in the TID, which over the course of the next 5 years will pay off the debt that's currently in the TID, and it'll grow incrementally until such time where we either invest more money in that TID, or we set it up where it's closed out. So if we would have another development in there, it may set it in the negative for approximately 10 years before you'd see a fund balance start to recuperate there. That is also a donor TID. So with the downtown revitalization coming, with the highway bypass, that's something that would help TID 5. So right now it's on track where it could produce some cash, but any future development is going to put it right back in the negative side. Obviously, looking at market stability, we all know 2020 is looming, election. There's definite economic factors. Interest rates are fine right now. They're back into the 3s for fixed mortgages. So people are looking. There's a lot of people calling, people stopping, interested parties. And I'm coming, I'm basically looking for direction. Anything that, I've worked numerous hours with Jim. I put time with Parker's Horizon Group. I guess I want to open it up to a panel of discussion moving forward as the village sees what your thoughts are on the process, because it has a lot to do with where we steer our funds moving forward. So.
Obviously, your market stability was printed prior to yesterday's stock market slide.
Yes.
Of course, that's temporary.
Yeah, that's, it's up one day, down the other. So.
Todd, Tim is going to be coming to a village board meeting, is that correct?
Yes.
To talk about the population
Yes.
study, and it sounds like the school district is taking in 150 new kids, and 60 or 70 of them are in Hortonville.
Yes. A lot of that is attributed to your cottages project.
I'm just wondering, you know, when we think about housing, it's, you know, all economic levels too.
Yep,
You know,
absolutely.
the starter homes, the, you know, what's available.
Okay. There are, we were a part of that, Pat, we were a part of that study, so we did give quite a bit of information to that. I think and that's grown, because as of about 2 weeks ago, there was 131 kids,
Right.
so now it's to 150.
I think, I might be wrong, but didn't he say that
That's what I had heard
at
last
the
Yeah.
library meeting?
Yeah.
Jeannie, I don't know if you remember the number,
Yeah.
but it seems like it was 150.
Close to that, yeah.
Who's the developer for cottages on Main?
That's the Commonwealth,
It is Commonwealth.
yes. Yeah, and they have also expressed interest in another development because of the success with the Commonwealth. There's actually a waiting list to get in. Chris can speak to it. There have been notifications of evictions. She's not here yet. She'll be here for the 6
I
o'clock.
know there's some issues up there.
They have, what Chris and I had been doing is actually stepping over the rental manager and going to ownership group and regional managers. And it seems to have more traction because there's been issues with people who are registered to stay there. And they didn't have enough teeth on their rules because you could stay for, I believe, 2 weeks at a time. If you took 1 day off, you could come back and stay for 2 weeks at a time. So we essentially asked them to clean up the rules because what they were doing was harboring people that were
Right, from out of state.
basically working the system.
She told me that the squad calls up there since this project happened have more than doubled monthly.
Yes.
That's not good.
We have also, so what I've done is I've secured language. I haven't acted on it yet, but I do have language that we could opt to do our ordinance codification with call volume. So we do have the language. If we wanted to charge for excessive call volume, we could do that.
Yeah, you know, if we don't clean that up, it won't do you any good to put these lots in, because people, as soon as they see that and hear about that, they're not gonna build in Hortonville. If there are ongoing issues.
Yeah, we also, Carl and I have noticed numerous issues with the site already. Disrepair, things outside falling apart. So we have been on them handling this. I also have language for a CDA if we need to do a development authority, which will allow us to basically mandate what happens on and or around their campuses.
I know that Jim Moeller, who is in here right now, has gotten calls about neighboring residents.
Yes.
There's a person that works for us that lives right next door who's going to sell and move. So those are not encouraging any further growth as far as I'm concerned. But, I mean, you've got the long arm of the law that can reach out, you could do some code changes
Yes.
and stuff. there.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, however, last 3 weeks now, I know one of the families have been taken out of the equation. That was one of the families that was the primary troublemaker.
Evicted?
They were evicted, and I believe Chris has not, other than, she had one call this weekend, but before that it was almost a 2-week stretch where it was quiet. And it ranges from all things. There's been drug issues there, grand theft, there's been stealing.
Harboring?
Harboring, yep.
Yep.
So, again, a lot of it is people that are now here from Racine, Milwaukee, Racine, Kenosha counties. So they're not locals, they're just Section 8 voucher users. So, that would be the least important, or I know, Pat, we want to go to all levels of income, but associated, and not stereotypical, but associated with that oftentimes comes issues. So we want to pick and choose the right thing to do.
Well, whenever you have an apartment building, there's gonna be more calls because
Sure.
people hear more. Things can be going on in upscale neighborhoods, but people next door don't hear the issues either, but maybe we can think of prevention, what can we, you know, I mean, there might be other options for the families, I'm sure it's hard.
Once school starts too, some of the families receive different types of resources.
Right,
So
right.
that's
Yep.
helpful too.
And structure, summertime, so, I can't say vandalism at Miller Park came from that, but it could be associated with that, because the way Carl's made it sound is that's never been happened in the past. There's some spray painting going on in the bathrooms at Miller Park, so.
I wanted to ask Bob, you know, with that supposedly Section 8 coming in there, isn't that in violation of what they told us? I mean, are we still bound by that agreement if they're gonna be bringing stuff like that in? Because that was never brought up or.
I haven't looked at that.
If I may add this, I recall the very early stages of this proposition with them. They assured us that there wouldn't be any issues with low income. I'll use that term, low income. I think they referred to it as affordable income, if I am correct.
You are correct.
So now we have the issues with the Section 8. We have all this different class of people. I'm not saying they're all bad, but it just draws. And I know Chris is upset. I personally am a little upset that I feel we've been led down the wrong path, misinformed, and I think it's a detriment to any further growth in that area. It's my opinion.
What are the lots, you were talking about the Mike Gunnering lots, what is that?
Those are the 2 lots adjacent to the toy factory. The third lot would be adjacent to the Catholic cemetery.
Okay.
So you got three consecutive lots before you get to the Catholic cemetery on Highway 15.
Do the Bear Walls own any of that?
Bear Walls owned the third one,
Okay,
so
that's-
directly.
That's what I remember, okay.
Mike Goddard owns the 2 across the street from the toy factory.
Okay.
He actually approached the village because he was looking at developing apartments, and I suggested he consider having a management company. He's a little up in age, and I said, I don't know if you want to start this when you're up in age, you know, dealing with rentals and because he had talked about underground parking, a full meal deal. So that's why when we were already working on the Nash property, we decided, we reached out to the gentleman from Verizon and sent them the information on that property. They're both qualified.
What is that all zoned, those 3 lots? What are those?
It's a mixed use, highway commercial.
Okay.
So it could accommodate just about anything. So, I guess what I'm really looking for is any ideas that might be in any of your heads, where you think the village should go in the future. I'm not afraid to take the time to do this, but I want to know if there's a definite no. Obviously, I know that answer already from what we're dealing with. What's a definite no? We've got to have a better qualification, but, you know, are we open to entertaining, I mean, we could talk $1 million here, and that's not gonna be, I mean, we potentially could be bonding money to help out. We could help develop, we could help bond infrastructure. I've even discussed with other municipal advisors that it wouldn't be out of line, and a lot of municipals are doing land banking. So they're taking banks of land themselves, they're developing self-development, real estate development, where they're cutting out the middleman, and they're buying, developing, and selling lots for the sake of their own good, because that's what drives the tax levy.
How is
So,
that working in other communities?
it's
So far?
actually on the up and up. It takes a very aggressive person to do it, and I'm not saying I'm the perfect person, but I have some development. I built spec houses for approximately 11 years. Would I want to engage it 100%? I don't think I'd have the time. It would consume my role. However, when you can cut out the realtor costs, you can cut out the middleman costs, there's a lot of, you know, there's effect, you can make a profit for the village. At the point we look at, you know, even break even is where we want, because we make it on the backside with increment. You know, we're looking to drive the tax dollar, not so much the volume that we make, but you always gotta look out for costs associated, especially if you're bonding funds, you know, and you got interest dollars associated, so, you know, and I'll speak for Jim. I mean, do you wanna say, Jim, and you wanna pipe in on anything, or?
Well, that cost, like my first phase, you know, I hooked up with vans, and I had 11 lots myself, and I had a builder buy them right up. And I got 46,000 a piece for them. And I think that we had about 35 in them lots. You know, we did a retention pond. We had some rock in the front too. We had a little rock excavation. But I know the next phase, you know, there's 39 lots. I told you I want to keep that big one, because I got 150,000 stuff in that lot. But it's gonna be hard for me, you know, to get somebody to stick 1.6, because you gotta there's some rock. As you go west, there's less rock and then no rock, the further you go west in that subdivision. But for somebody to spend that much money, that's a lot of money to put up front, you know, for them lots. I know, you know, if I had assistance, I could sell blocks of 10 lots to a few builders. I think that phase, that's all it's southern exposure. The first phase sold out in a year, and you heard the guy
Yep.
up in the subdivision
Yep.
said that'll go pretty quick, that southern exposure, them lots.
Yeah.
But I don't have the funds to do that, you know, and if the village doesn't wanna do it, that's fine, it's up to you guys, I don't care, but I'll probably go in a different direction then, you know. But it's just it's a lot of upfront cost for me to put out, and a developer to put out. You know, because what they gotta do, they gotta pay 1.6, and I would probably, we could deal with them on the land, you know, and help them somewhat. But then they gotta build houses, $200,000 a house, you know, like Vance, he'll build 6, 7 houses, well, he's got over $1 million in that, now he's at 2.5, you know.
Jim, how big are your lots, like the
Well,
average size of a lot? Cause
the
I know
reason-
there's people looking for bigger lots and.
See, the reason people built them lots, and the reason the guys bought them, you know, I deliver trees all over the valley.
Yeah.
In Grand Chute, Darboy, Greenville, all lots are quarter acre. 87 feet wide in Grand Chute, 90 feet wide. I can't get between houses with my spade chop. And they're all quarter acre lots.
Okay,
And all lots, the whole subdivision I have laid out for the whole subdivision, 155 lots, they're all a third to a half acre or some are 3/4, the way they're laid out. And the reason the people are in there, because they like the larger lots. 80 feet between the houses, there's trees all around them in the back, over the hill, there's trees, wetlands, some ponds, that's why they're there. And I had a developer from Greenville tell me this, he was looking at it, but he's pretty tied up in Greenville, he's got a lot of land. He said, Jim, the reason people are coming out here is for these bigger lots. He said, if you build a quarter acre lots, they're not coming to Hortonville.
no, I've had people call and just friends that are interested, looking for lots in the Hortonville area, but they're looking for something bigger than a quarter acre. They're looking for something that they could put like an extra building, or they could have a little bit more room. They're
Well, in
looking.
the sewer service area, you can't get much bigger than a half because it costs so much for development cost. And then you can't start putting sheds on them. And
Yeah.
you gotta have covenances, like we got pretty tight covenances, but they're all right, you know, 1,500 square foot minimum home, third stone and brick, a setback, certain pitch on the roof,
Yeah.
earth tone homes. I mean, in my subdivision now, I think there's 6 families in there, they're young, they love it. There's two retired people in there, different, 2 retired homes in there, they're from Milwaukee.
Okay.
They love it, they think they're up north, you know, so it's quiet, you know, so the people are there really like it. And
Okay.
like, David, you were there, you heard a comment, the reason he's here, he's got a half an acre.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Just
And I
kind of
think-
curious if there's any other land in the village. I mean, Jim's obviously got, you've got land, but is there any other opportunities other than what's listed here as could be those little bit bigger lots
Yeah.
that people are looking for?
No, I mean, Brian Parker's is plotted. However, he hasn't done what Jim's done. We don't know those hard costs. They could be north of what we're at here.
Okay.
Every year you wait, Julie, it's gonna get higher.
Well, my cost, since last fall, went up 10%.
Yeah.
10% in a year. But I think, isn't it Parker's, if he'd start out next to the road that is existing there,
Yeah.
doesn't he have the quarter acre lots?
Yeah, yes.
You know, something like that, just throwing it out there, something like that, if he's, you know, I don't think he wanted to start there, but if he's got the quarter acre lots, he could put in 1,200 square foot homes, and they would sell. You know, I'm at the 1,500 foot mark, the houses up by me are about 250 to 300, and they're moving. But I'm saying if he started out there, the quarter acres, because I think that's the way he set it up, he could sell them. But like me, like I say, I'm kinda tied up here, but if the village, they're not interested, I understand. It's a lot of money.
Again, we're not here to make decisions. I'm
No.
just looking for input on what
Just-
people's thoughts are.
Because I'll go in a different direction and you guys will and.
Because I have had people ask, are there
Absolutely.
bigger lot, or they pull in our driveway and they can't
Yeah.
realize we've got a triple deep lot.
Yeah,
So we're, and if people have that little extra space, I think that's something desirable.
Between my homes, there's anywhere from 40 to 80 feet. And I guarantee you go to Greenville, it's 20,
Yeah.
in
Oh, yeah.
Grand Chute, it's 10.
Yeah,
The
I can't get
problem,
truck between them.
the problem that we run into is essentially, if we build out here and finish a year strong like we're projecting, we have really nothing to offer
No.
next year. And it's real easy to go from Greenville to New London. You know, they can jump over. And I guess where I'm coming to you all is saying, what options are you, what's in your heads? Because we gotta figure something out. We gotta do something. If we wanna continue to grow, we have capacity to grow, you know, with the high school. We have capacity with our wastewater treatment plant. We could definitely handle it with our police force. all the amenities are here could satisfy it. It's just, how do we wanna go at this? you know?
But David, not to butt in, but have you guys thought about the bypass too, and that comes, they put 4 lanes out to Greenville, they moved in 10,000 people. That bypass, what I understand, is got bumped up 2 years.
Yes, sir, yeah.
You know, so when that bypass goes in, it's only, but my line, it's only 1.5 miles away.
Have we
You know, it's
considered
far enough away, but it's still pretty close.
Yeah.
doing like a more of a small, like not a focus committee, but a smaller committee that would maybe include some of the bigger players? So you've got some developers, yourself, maybe a village board member or two. I think of economic development. I think that we've got some interest from our businesses. We have businesses that can't find enough employees. I think that they're looking for housing for their employees as well. And another big player to this is the school district, because more students is more dollars, but also they need to be aware of what's going on with planning too. Could this be something more like a tighter, like a focus group that looks at this a little bit
I
more?
don't think that's a bad option. I did, I have reviewed the school plan heavily.
I know.
And the numbers that they're predicting for the village here is, I think by 2035, they're predicting almost, 5,000?
And they can predict that, but if we don't have the lots,
Exactly,
that's so
yeah.
hard. So I think they're a player in this, and not that they're gonna be the ones to help develop, but at least they can have a hand in they do the studies, and they pay a lot of money for these studies. That's some of the work done for you. Why not tap off with that a little bit? But I even think of economic development. I think there's businesses, I know that the industrial park, there are businesses that are always looking for help. They can't find enough employees. Because there aren't, if I recall, when I first got on the board, it was, I think, Diane that had gone to a couple of the industrial park businesses, and they were saying, well, we can't afford to live here in Hortonville, some of the employees. So I think, there are people that work here in the village or want to work in the village, but can't afford to live here. So I think we need to consider all economic, because I think there are, legit people that want housing here, especially some of these younger families starting out.
I've heard that too, from people that were looking for homes and, they want to stay here, but they can't.
Yeah.
They just can't afford it.
I think, what Pat said, I think when you look at all economic levels, I think that the Commonwealth is a great learning experience for us as a village, but I think that there still is that need for housing that folks can afford. I remember, look at some of the development that is here in Hortonville. It's been there for 75 years or more. These are all these ranch houses. I think of Nash Street. I have photos of Nash Street. There's nothing on it, Clearly, at some point, somebody, I think Melvin Kringle probably built a lot of those houses. But those were affordable houses, story and a half. I think of Doug Jones. I think of those different houses. I just think maybe a smaller, not that this board doesn't have a say, but I think it'd be just where they could sit down and more brainstorm and maybe pull in some employers in the area too. They might even have some ideas. Because maybe some employers would, not that they have the extra money, but maybe there's some economic development dollars for them, that there's some investment there.
So basically what we're talking about is in the early 90s when the industrial park was built, the first one, that was commercial and businesses out there. And the board at that time bonded and got the property and put the facilities and everything. And that took off. So now a lot of this, we're just switching it to the residential side.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I agree, who comes in, their rules are gonna have to be tightened up if we are seeing and tweaking what development that we want and promote. So I think, but really it's kind of just going from industrial to residential now. And the industrial parks have been really a boom for the village here.
Who can tell me what kind of cash investment the village did in that day? Granted, now you gotta go back 20 years.
I think maybe the infrastructure, and clearly you've got to have roads to build houses. You got to have the sewer. Not that I'm trying to say, okay, we're going to pay for all of this, but clearly the infrastructure was there from the village level to help. But I think that's something we need to focus on.
Then let's put it on. Let's just put it out there. Potentially, what Jim has come to the village and asked is, would the village potentially bond his project for infrastructure And the deal that we'd work out is we potentially could get either cash per sale on the lots. Every time a lot sells, we get paid cash back to cover our investment. Or Jim would potentially hand us lots that we could self-develop, where we would be responsible for selling the lots. It puts a risk on us, but we have to
That'd
be
be
proactive.
much like that we sold, the village actually sold the lots in industrial park.
Correct.
I don't think we should be developers or realtors, quite honestly.
I
You know,
think it
look at
could
the
be
housing,
very
look at the housing
It's
risk.
risky.
Look what we went through, what, 10 years ago?
Yeah.
8 to 10 years ago? So we go along with this idea, and all of a sudden, we've got 4 or 5 lots that we've exchanged services for, and it takes a dump.
I do think, like Julie said, not saying yes or no, but I think we should study it and get a group together and look at it very seriously.
More of a hardcore discussion,
I agree.
and especially some of the bigger players in the community. I think we've got some employers up in the industrial park that I think could give some input to what they see on their future. You might have a certain employer that maybe employs 50 employees, but they're looking at expanding, and they may need 50 more people to come. I mean, I think there's potential there.
Yep, I think we gotta get the door out
Yeah,
of
we gotta
the
get
As long as it doesn't involve Section 8 housing,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
no, this is,
We may need to go to further discussion.
Yep,
you know,
right.
Yeah.
As we are
Agreed.
at 6, so
yeah, we'll have to adjourn, so it's
could I have a motion to adjourn?
I make it,
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Thank you for your input on that, guys. We'll take it up again.